Hello and welcome to my short talk on the design and the development of a CTIP for the PSGE. This talk will cover a project which implemented a CTIP for the PSGE. Firstly, we will look at the problem environment and why this was needed, the design of the tool, the solution which was implemented, and some lessons learned from this project. First of all, we must look at why this solution was needed. Firstly, the PSGE stands for the Power Smart Grid Ecosystem and involves all those involved with the generation, transmission, distribution and consumption of power. Secondly, a CTIP is a cyber threat information portal and acts as a single place where users can get information regarding cyber threats. Critical national infrastructure is fundamental to daily life and the PSGE supports this. The smart grid is created through developments on the traditional grid by introducing bidirectional flowing information, as shown by the diagram on the right. This bidirectional flowing information reduces power wastage by introducing demand-driven supply, however increases attack vectors and therefore increases the cyber risk. This is why this solution was needed. Now we must look at the design process this project went through after an extensive background study and engagement with a focus group in order to gather requirements. This project used the Unified Markup Language, or UML, which enabled the project to visualize, specify, document and construct artifacts in a software system. This offers a standardized approach with diagrams specifying structure and behavior. Firstly, from the use case diagram on the left, we can see from a user's perspective how the CTIP should act. This sort of diagram helps us understand user needs. Secondly, from the deployment diagram, we can see the technical structure of the system. This demonstrates exactly where technical artifacts should be stored. Finally, the class diagram on the right demonstrates classes within the software system. From this, we can also see the characteristics of each class. For example, in the threat info table class, the characteristics demonstrate the columns to be included in the database table. We can also see the methods or operations of each class. These help demonstrate what each classes can do and help link back to the requirements. Finally, we can also clearly demonstrate relationships between each classes. These help demonstrate interactions between each classes. For example, we can see the dashboard class relies on information stored in the threat info table class. This is the solution that this project implemented. This project took a needle in a haystack approach to the implementation. This meant identifying and finding information only relevant to the PSGE, inputting this information into the project, going through the relevant classification processes, and finally outputting the information to users. The relevant inputs, processes and outputs will now be discussed. So first of all, the project programmatically gets threat information from APIs. This threat information comes from many different sources, such as mainstream media, more traditional open source intelligence sources, and social media. Here, on the share page, users can also input threat information to the CTIP. After the threat information has been inputted into the CTIP, we must look at the processes the information goes through. First of all, we can see the process of anonymizing the sharer. As we can see from this sharing page, there is no requirement for users to identify themselves when sharing threat information. This helps keep the user's anonymity. Secondly, we can see the process of classification of information based on its sensitivity. For this, the project used the traffic light protocol. In accordance with this protocol, users can classify information as TLP white, green, amber or red. Due to one of the key requirements of this CTIP being accessible by everyone, only threat information classed as TLP white will be displayed. Threat information above TLP white will be outputted using a policy of responsible disclosure. This involves emailing affected parties or using a more formalized vulnerability disclosure process. This responsible disclosure process aims to protect the affected stakeholders while still outputting threat information to the PSGE. The outputs for TLP white information, however, will be displayed in tables such as these to the users. The overall feedback was positive. Due to this positive feedback, we could see that there is a clearly identified need. From this feedback as well, it identified future work to obtain more curated threat information from stakeholders using the portal. Finally, the positive feedback demonstrated that the project delivered a useful solution. What you can take from this is it helps to use standardized processes, such as the UML approach. Secondly, it is useful to use well-documented software or languages where possible. This helps you develop a very quick understanding. Finally, it is important to gather as much information as possible about the problem environment to help support your project. This will in turn help you provide a useful solution as this project demonstrated. Finally, if you are interested in this project or want to get more information, please contact me at either two links below. Otherwise, thank you for listening to my talk.